Hi everyone, hope you're doing well today, wherever you are. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Tammy Davis, and I wanted to talk a little bit, or actually have the question that I've been asking myself, and I thought I'm going to pose this here. And that is, how are you selling your soul? That's a strange question, I know. It's probably not worded the best, but I just got to thinking about some things because I don't know, over the last few months, I've been exposed to circumstances that have really kind of drummed up, introduced me to myself, and really caused me to explore what the heck is going on. So everything I'm about to say is not about blame. It's more about just describing experiences and how it registered, how my brain, my psyche interpreted it to the degree that it has impacted my entire life. Um, and I suppose I'm going to propose that this is the case for most of us. Okay, this is the reason why a week or so ago I did a video, I think it's been more like a couple weeks now, regarding trauma and healing from trauma and what it really means to heal from trauma. It also correlates to my recent, to the July newsletter. This is 2020, July 2020 newsletter, which is talking about conscious activism. And if you haven't signed up, please go to my website, synergessence.com, and join my email list, and I'll be more than happy to provide you with a copy of that newsletter. And because it relates to every area of our life, not just the current injustices that we're seeing, but it's the relationship that we have with ourselves, the relationship that we have with others that affects the way we spend our money, it affects the way we take care of our bodies, it affects everything. And it more specifically, it even impacts the way we relate to one another. So socially, it's really hurting us. And so conscious activism really is about a commitment to do things differently than what we've have observed historically. And again, I'm going to say it here, as I've said in the past, I feel like each one of us has experienced our own degree of trauma. And by that, I mean, it's the way we, it comes back to the way we relate to one another. The way the people that brought us into this world, and the people that taught us, and the people that the people that were in a position of authority when we were children, and the way they interacted with us. And it was, so this, what I'm trying to say is that any degeneration in health, whether it be emotional health, physical health, mental health, stems from beliefs and behaviors. We want to talk about things being hereditary, and while there's various aspects to the genome, and so there's the Mendelian heredity, where we have, we get our eye color, the shapes of our fingers, the shapes of our eyes, and so forth. And of course, then there's always the potential genetic, I don't like to use the word defect, but a change, an alteration in the genes where there may be some form of deformity, okay? There are true genetic health conditions that are, due to rapid changes within the chromosomes, and then the next thing you know is you've got congenital, this is what we call congenital defects, but things like cancer and autoimmune and depression and anxiety and high blood pressure and all of these other things that we relate to as degenerative health issues, these are not hereditary. What's hereditary is the way our family line acted, and the way they believed. And the way they believed informed their actions. Okay? And this has been happening historically. This is one reason why I've said, again in the past, why history repeats itself. And so the only way to heal trauma and to begin really creating this foundation for healing is to begin to do things differently than what we have been observing. what we have been receiving. And so this is conscious activism. Okay, this is what I mean by conscious activism, and like I said, it can translate to any area of our life. It's even how it comes down to the way we manage our healthcare. We can't keep repeating these old behaviors and expecting different results. You guys, it's called insanity. So that said, how are we selling our soul? So I've kind of done some, like I said, some soul searching. The last few months has really produced some circumstances that brought me face to face with a lot of different things. And I can sit here and say that, well, I had this experience that left me feeling alone, and I had this experience that left me feeling unguided, and I had this experience that left, as a child, right? I can say all of these things, and it's an accurate accounting of what my life was like. Pardon me. I just almost spilled my drink. So it was an accurate accounting of, it is an accurate accounting of how I experienced my upbringing. Now, that said, this isn't a pity party, me wanting to feel sorry for myself, and I'm going to encourage people not to do that as well. We can assess, we can observe how things went in our life, and then we can observe how we do things today. And one of the things that I have said for a very long time was that I felt like I grew up in a world of conditional love, and what I've determined for myself basically is that, and this is what I mean by the question, how are we selling our soul? Because what I learned, truthfully, was that unless I behaved a certain way and spoke a certain way, it was unacceptable. Okay? For years, I've talked about wanting to be acceptable. I just want to feel accepted. Never registering as to what this was all about. Okay? So, again, I wasn't allowed to make a lot of noise. I mean, children were to be seen and not heard. I was to, couldn't be spontaneous, which I love to be spontaneous. I love to be able to do something like, I'm just going to go do this. Spontaneity was like, nah, so there was a lot of things about me, and then I'm currently rediscovering this, taking my time to really kind of anchor back into that spirit in me, my essence, if you will. But in the meantime, what I learned was that how I showed up emotionally, mentally, even physically. This is the reason why I currently have my gym clothes on, and I haven't apologized for it, because normally what I would do is I would apologize. Sorry, you guys. I just had this idea. And I've done this. Just had this idea that, well, I'll just sit down and talk. No, because and what's interesting to me is we have this culture that says you have to show up, you have to look a certain way, make sure your face is all fixed up, your hair is done right, you got the right outfit on, and then people will listen to you. Then they'll take you seriously. Really? If I wanted to show up here with a pink and white polka dotted bathing cap and talk to you about something, I mean, if you can't get past the bathing cap, then there's something seriously wrong, because what I'm trying to say here is more than what I'm wearing. Okay? So, but because of that, because the way I showed up emotionally, which people used to tell me I was messy. I've had colleagues, when I was going through all of my ontological training, I literally had people that I was in the coursework with tell me that I was a messy person emotionally. And they wouldn't have anything to do with me because I was emotionally messy. No, I just feel things, and I have opinions about things. But again, all of that was unacceptable. Now, granted, the delivery is important, right? But we can all deliver our messages. We can all say what we want to say without needing to apologize, and without being, without raging and without sobbing. We can all learn how to talk about what we think and how we feel emotionally. And I think it's really a very important component. But nonetheless, I've had people not like the way I showed up emotionally. Even if I was like, because I hadn't learned how to manage my emotions, honestly. I didn't know what to do with my emotions. I was raised with how do I say this? My mother was extraordinarily volatile, very volatile. I mean, extraordinarily and very, don't even begin to encompass the experience that I've had. But exceedingly, I mean, we're talking like I want to use like the biggest expansive expression to demonstrate or illustrate. Um, I don't want to demonstrate it. Her volatility, and then my father was on the exact opposite end of the scale. He didn't know where he stood emotionally. I mean, it was just like always poker face. um, that was my model. I didn't know what to do with it. I knew what I didn't want to look like, but I didn't understand this either because I had feelings. I had emotions coming up. But apparently, he didn't. I mean, that's the way it was coming across. But that was what it looked like, and that was what I was very painful to even observe, let alone. So I just started to internalize a lot of it. And I don't really ever want to badmouth them. See, I'm trying to make excuses because I just want to say that I know they did the best they could with what they had and with what they understood. Um, but that was my model. So learning how to actually navigate life through emotions or with emotions was very difficult for me. So of course I showed up kind of messy, but it was never acceptable. And then again, then there's the thought process, the thinking. My thoughts with even right down to which is something I'm posting on my website right now with regards to our extensive use of vitamins, water soluble and fat soluble vitamins, and the potential that trouble that fat soluble vitamins could be causing. So, but these are thoughts. This is contemplation. This is consideration. Again, it was never acceptable. So I learned to shape and define myself based on what other people were, how other people would react to me, to almost control that level of acceptance, to garner that acceptance, because I wanted so badly to be accepted, so that I was a shapeshifter. Now, I'm beginning to believe that a lot of us are this way. This isn't just my experience. And the reason I say that, or part of the reason I say that, is because there's a big push, and there has been for a while, to not care about what other people think, just to be yourself, be authentic, and not really care. But I'm going to challenge everybody that's watching this, and encourage you to challenge people around you to really begin to check in and how authentic is that, and not from a place of judgment, a place of observation, and beginning to learn about ourselves as far as, I mean, even right down to paying attention to how quickly we say we apologize for something. It happens a lot. I mean, even when I'm out in public, I mean, people are apologizing for, I mean, in the store, if I'm walking this way and somebody's coming down an aisle this way and they start to peek out and they look at me, oh, sorry. I'm like, it's totally cool. We're here. You can't see me. I couldn't see you, but here we are. So let's just keep going. Nothing to apologize for. Um, so there's an element of people pleasing, I guess, inauthenticity, or lack of authenticity happening, that I feel like if we started all getting in touch with, where we are doing something, saying something, thinking based on our previous experiences. Now, I've talked again about this as well. A reaction basically is an action that's based in the past. That's the reason why it's a reaction. We are reacting out from historical experiences. And so it really comes down to, I mean, like from my case, okay, I'm super critical of people. What I realized today is that It's not so much about what I didn't get or how I felt I had to change in order to be acceptable. Although I've shared that, that's only the beginning. Because what I'm now beginning to observe in myself is how quickly I am, how critical I am of people. If I don't like something that somebody does, I mean, if I don't say it to them, I'm at least going to grow, because somehow or another they're not. I mean, how do I say this? They're not doing what I want them to do. So all I'm doing now at that point is perpetuating the way I was, the way I learned, the way I interpreted life. Does that make sense? If I learned through my entire life, or and I adapted my ways to making sure that I could control acceptance and get people to like me and get people to be near me, I was doing that. And what I've done is I've spun that around, and I've basically been letting other people know that they're not acceptable to me unless they do what I want them to do, unless they act in a certain way, unless they're actually, unless like, I agree with what they're doing. Whoa. I mean, it just really hit me hard. And that's the reason why I was asking about selling our soul. I mean, how many of us actually sit around and look at other people or observe other people, whether it be online or in public, and go, I don't know about that. That's not something I would do. And we become super critical, quickly judgmental, potentially, assholes, depending on what it is, and may not even have anything to do with anybody. Instead of just looking at them and going, okay, well, that's what works for them. That's how they want to do it. It's not my place. And the funny thing is I have talked about not being judgmental for years. I've talked about living in unconditional love, but what I recognize is that I don't even have that. I haven't held that for myself. And because I'm not holding that space for myself, right down to not apologizing to the way I showed up here in this video, that's unconditional love for me. I believe in the message that I have right now. And I believe it's very, very important that we all begin to look at how we are holding each other hostage, so to speak, with our judgment of what somebody else should or shouldn't be doing, where we are super critical, where, and just beginning to look at divining new ways to accept ourselves as we are, for who we are, for how we feel, for how we think. Now, look, if you get belligerent, yes, please apologize. Take responsibility for what you put out there, because we're all putting energy out there. And that's basically what I'm doing right now. I'm kind of like just reining it back in. I am very, very sorry for the way I think, talk behind the wheel of my car about what I see. And for as much as I don't appreciate certain things about people, then I do appreciate things about people, but learning to appreciate all of it. I guess that's what it comes down to, is learning to appreciate all of it. This is where we hear about, being grateful for everything. How can we, and again, this is a fine line, and that, and the second I say that, I hear potential objections going, well, I don't appreciate the way, the violence in the streets. Can we appreciate the emotions that are behind it? Can we appreciate the pain that's causing people to do this? Can we begin to appreciate everybody for where they are? Look, one of the things that I realize is that this is all about force and control, okay? If somebody doesn't think like us, we want to force them to, we're trying to force so much change down everybody's throat, but it's maybe not the change that everybody needs. And I don't know if I can say that any differently. I guess what I'm saying is there is a lot of pain right now. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of, there is hostility. And although we may not like the actions that are coming, how can we look at the individual behind that action and begin to appreciate them for whatever happened in their life that would have brought them to that point of pain? How can we appreciate them for their pain and stop telling them why you shouldn't feel this way? Who are we to tell them that? mean, and this is what I'm seeing is like we get mad at people who are angry. We get mad at people who become hostile. We meet them where they're at, and I'm suggesting that maybe this is conscious activism. We begin to identify that as pain. It doesn't. We don't have to know the circumstances behind it. That's none of your business. It's none of my business. But can we just look at that human being and realize, wow, something really has occurred in their life to bring them to this point? And so how can we begin to hold that space of like, I don't have all the answers. What I can say is that I have been able to dispel a lot of animosity in a single setting simply by not engaging with somebody's amped energy, by literally causing them to kind of like, it's almost like when I was a kid, there was a commercial. If you want to get somebody's attention, whisper. There's no telling what's possible when we see, we keep talking about all this peaceful protest, and I think it's brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant. But what if we actually see hostile protest, and we find a way to help them dial it down through understanding, through recognition. See, this is what I say is the call to that we're being called to do. I don't have all the answers as far as what actions need to take place, but the fact is that the more present we are with accepting people for where they are and not expecting them to think and feel differently, and just allowing that space, the more I think we will be, at that point, you're present with them. Okay, at that point, you are present, you are connected to them. Again, you may not like the activity, you may not like the behavior, you may not like any of that, but if we can at least connect to them at the level of pained individual and accepting. See, accepting is not tolerating. Accepting is just holding the space. Okay, I get it. You're upset, you're angry, these are your thoughts. And not taking anything personally. But see, this is what's happening on our streets. Everybody's taking everything personally. Somebody else's anger may not have anything to do with you. You may look like somebody, you may represent an individual and it's triggering, but it's not necessarily at you. 95% of the time, we aren't even talking to the person in front of us. We're not even reacting to the person in front of us. We are reacting to something historically. So how can we begin to hold that space of allowing people their thoughts and allowing people their emotions and holding the space that good will come of this and that we can be the impetus for that change? That's conscious activism. Because like I said, now we're present, we're connected, and we are holding that space, and we're no longer selling our souls. We are being true to ourselves, and we're allowing somebody else to be authentic. It's so funny when we talk about anger and emotions, other emotions and thoughts. Sometimes I feel like that's the most truest part of us. It's the happy memes, the positive, be kind, to me, I'm beginning to really wonder how authentic that really is if we can't allow our own emotions. And this is something that I've determined about myself. I can't sit here and be all happy without acknowledging the fact that those are my emotions, and I'm not going to apologize for my feelings any longer. I'm learning how to talk about them. I'm learning how to regulate my behavior in a way that I'm not like, crazy. You know what I'm saying? Physically violent, which I never have been. The point is that, the idea of throwing something has occurred to me, but I don't want to. And so learning how to self-regulate and realizing that other people are perfectly capable of self-regulating when we don't engage with them, when we recognize them for the individual, when we recognize them that is the most authentic thing that they could be doing right now. Because I guarantee you, anything that we're seeing in the streets, the hostility, that's real. And instead of sitting back in our own little houses and in our cars and getting pissed off at somebody because, well, they're out there being real. That's absurd. So how can we begin to appreciate the pain in the sense that it actually brought them, it introduced us to them, it connected us to them. How, that's the point that I'm getting at here. This is where we begin to embrace our soul and live according to our soul, as opposed to selling it out for the sake of someone else. Anyway, that's about all I have today. I hope that makes sense. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you guys are enjoying your day wherever you are, and I will see you soon. Bye now.